Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new session of Holochain-in-Action and to our friend in the community joining today. So we are going to listen to Matthias about architecture of the V application. So we are going to do a little bit deep dive to the architecture. And are we going to also code review, Matthias? Yes?
Yes, I mean, as you like, we can adapt it, I think, but I would like, yeah, if you like.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, if there is any repository or link, I'm going to put the link or everything related to this video in the description. That's it. Thank you for watching. Let's go to the Matthias to see what we can do today. Matthias, please.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I thought I would start with just the GitHub repo. So it's this Lightning Rod Labs V, and it also links to this blog post that writes a bit more about the whole motivation behind V. And I started a little demo here. I hope it works more or less.
So generally, as a definition, a V is a space for collaborative. Yes, it means we can.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Should maybe introduce it first.
Yes, please. At first, let's have a brief explanation about the V. Yes.
Yeah, basically, V is, as it stands here, is a holochain app that should make it trivially easy for groups to build collaboration spaces by composing custom applet suites to meet their collaboration needs. And with applet suites, it means like small holochain apps that can be plugged into V. And then it looks kind of like Discord, for example, where you have groups and then those applets here. Yeah, exactly. And then basically what you can do here, for example, I already started now two groups. And you see kind of, you can invite members to this group. You have here the applets library, which is fetching applets from the DevHub DNA. And you can install them to the group. Currently, there are not so many applets available.
Sorry to interrupt you, Matthias. Would you, if you have running the Holochain launcher, would you please also run it to tell people how you run this application? It means, what does it mean about the hub? So if also you can show it.
Yeah, so this version is currently not on the launcher. That's why I have not run it on the launcher. But like if this is going to be released, this version of V, we're going to put it on the launcher. Should I still show the launcher, or?
And we can do the launcher, but generally when it is about the hub, it means we have a launcher that running the Holochain application. So somehow the topic, and we can do a demo at the end of demoing. So because it is on your localhost, please continue. Sorry.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, basically I created two groups here. For example, I just basically copied Discord groups here, and then you can create a new group. Holochain-in-Action, for example, you can choose your profile. So in every group, you can kind of choose your identity for this group, your profile.
So that's your personal profile within that group.
Exactly. Yep. Then I can add new applets here. So let's add the calendar, for example. It's going to load it from the DevHub and then install it into the conductor. And now we have here, for example, we can add an event here like weekly Holochain-in-Action meeting, and create this. And now we can switch here between groups. You can watch here what kind of applets they have installed for example, in this group, you have two instances of the notebooks applet installed in one calendar. We could also add an event here, some event here. And then we can add another event here.
Is that calendar a Holochain app?
This is a Holochain app, yeah, exactly. And now, as you see, I can switch between groups and see the applets. And now what's kind of the feature that I added new is that you can also switch into the applet-centric rendering. So now you have on the left side the applets, and here you have all the instances. Like calendar, we have one of each of the groups. If you go to notebooks, we have two of the Lightning Rod Labs group and one of the hC group. And now I can move here between kind of the different group instances of this applet.
Yeah, this is what you were showing last week, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you got this working?
Yeah, I got it working now, right?
Yeah.
And also kind of this is kind of switching between the different applets. And then I implemented for now this merge view, but this could in principle be extended to any kind of functionality an applet may provide to kind of bridge between different groups. So when I click here, I see all the events of all the groups kind of in this one screen here. Yeah, that's kind of the main functionality that this version of V implements. Yeah, then I think that's basically it, more or less.
That is amazing. That is thank you, Matthias. Would you also please show that add two calendar that we can show that on the same day the calendar just showing all the events from different group?
What do you mean again?
It means in one day in calendar, if I can see that all the events from different, yes, it is here, yes.
That's this one, yeah.
Yes. So it means either I can switch between all my events from a different group, or I can see some event from if I click at the top also it is showing, yes?
Yeah, here I see, like here, this is the Holochain-in-Action calendar instance. And here I see all the Holochain-in-Action events, like another HIA event here. Then I can look at the FHC events, Lightning Rod Labs events, and I can use this merge view here to see all of them in one place, where I make basically some calls in all those applets and combine them in one view.
Amazing. And what happens if I click on the left side? It means I'm just changing the application, yes?
Here,
yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Here I go to notebooks, and notebooks I have two instances, like one I call notebooks and the other one, which would be a second instance of notebooks, also in the Lightning Rod Labs group. And
And for notebooks, I see two lightning icon because in each document in notebook is a different application.
No, that's because Lightning Rod Labs has two. Now I switch to group-centric navigation, and I see that Lightning Rod Labs has two instances of notebooks installed. So that's two notebooks applets.
So two DHTs, basically.
Exactly.
Exactly. So, and because in the notebook for each node you are creating, it is generating or creating a new DNA, one icon is going to be added.
So one icon is going to be added when in the home page of a group, say I install an applet. If I do, let's add a third notebooks applet to this group, then it will install for a while, and then I will get a new icon up here.
Okay.
Let's finish this. Now I have a third instance of notebooks, which is called differently. And if I switch into applet-centric mode, I just see kind of the class here, the class of it, and I see all the instances of this class installed up here. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm a bit curious, based on what you shared last time, how you ended up solving this issue,
implementing.
but I'd rather see the core we architecture first.
Sure.
Time permitting.
Sure. Yeah, sure. So I prepared some slides for this.
Matthias,
Yeah.
before going to architect, also, would you please show us how to install and use it in the launcher quickly, briefly? There is no need to go to details because we already have a couple of demo for launcher, but again, a quick review.
Yeah. So I opened the Holochain launcher, which you can download from the GitHub repo holochain/launcher. Then I enter the password, and yeah, basically I already have an instance of installed here of the latest version, and I can install a new app here, and it will show me the app that are available currently on the dev hub, and I can install this app like yeah. Okay, so
Thank you.
no problem. So also what I need to say, by the way, is that a lot of the work has been done with GM already before I started working on this, just to be clear. I don't take the full credit here. So yeah, basically there's kind of I thought it may make sense to kind of define the terms a bit. So we have a applet, which is a UI that is compatible with V. This means concretely that it exposes a specific set of rendering functions that can be called from the parent V UI. Then there's a V group, which is just kind of a group of agents or people that share a common set of V applets. So every group can have multiple instances of those applets, which are compatible with V. And when it says here a hApp with a UI, this means it's not just UI, it's kind of a Holochain hApp with UI. The UI needs to be compatible. And then there's what I call a renderer, which is a function which is basically one of those sets of rendering functions that an applet may provide. So it's basically a function that can be called by the VUI to render a specific UI of an applet. So one applet may expose multiple renderers, and those renderers can be called by the VUI if they, yeah, basically to render different views of this applet or across applet instances potentially. And this render receives amongst other things, the app WebSocket and the admin WebSocket from the Holochain JavaScript client. Yeah,
So,
then
Matthias, in brief, it means if any application would like to be adopted with a V, it's supposed to implement some interfaces as like applet.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
that I think my environment noisy right now. So yeah, so applet is the interface or something that's supposed to be implemented by any application, can be adoptable with V, and anything else that the whole architecture of other application consider. So just that's it, just applet.
No, I mean, I will show more afterwards. I just wanted to kind of make sure. And then there's, yeah, what I say, the applet instance currently, it's maybe not necessarily the best way to frame it, but I say there's an applet instance, which is one installed cell of this, or actually not necessarily cell, it can be multiple cells, but one app, Holochain app with a unique UID that's installed in a specific V group. That's an applet instance, and an applet class is basically kind of the generic app of which applet instances can be installed into V groups. So that's kind of the distinction that I make. So basically, if you if we go back to demo here, we see the applet classes, right, and all the different instances of this class installed.
Is that term applet class, is that a term you came up with, or is that a term?
That's the term I came up with. I don't know if it's a useful term or not. It's just the way I kind of organized.
It kind of makes sense because it's kind of the code for it. But this is a I think a very common pattern, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you've got the Zohm definitions, and then you may create multiple DHTs.
Yep.
Or a single Zohm definition, right? And so having I've been curious about the name there. That's why I asked. It seems like there ought to be a standard name. And class is fine, but I just was curious
I could
if
maybe
that's...
say it's a clone. Maybe I should call it clone. No, is it a clone? It's kind of a clone. It's not, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. No, I don't think it's a clone in the sense of clones will be implemented later. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
yeah, it's just the names I came up with. I don't claim that those are good names, but that's why I want to define them, that people know what I'm talking about. If I talk about instance and class and this kind of.
Yep.
And so now that's a visualization of the hApp. So the actual hApp, and it has basically two DNAs. It has the vDNA and the lobby DNA. And the lobby DNA stores the applet user interfaces, because you only want to, so the user interfaces, there are the same across instances. So I only store it once in the lobby DNA of the hApp. And then just identify them by the dev hApp release hash, which is a release hash they get if they're published to the dev hub.
So that the applet GUI's code, are there different, is that one piece of code that works for all apps or all applets, or is this applet specific UIs?
So the UIs, so basically what it provides here is this, it's this Zohm in the lobby DNA. If you look into the code, and it has basically this entry here, which is called applet GUI, which has a dev hApp release hash, which is the release hash with which it's been published to the dev hub. And it has the actual GUI, which is JavaScript file here stored as a private entry into this DHT. So that's how it's currently solved. I don't say it's the best pattern to do this, but it's kind of rather easy way to solve it, and to solve it in a way that you do not duplicate the user interfaces. So this is basically the JavaScript that is related to this user interface of an applet class is stored here once with the dev hApp release hash. Does this make sense so far?
Yeah, that's yeah, that part made sense. I'm curious about other, that's the only properties of the applet GUI? It's just the hash and then the serialized bytes? There's no other
of the pure user interface, it's only this, that's only used as a storage for the renderers, like yeah, exactly. Currently they only need this. Then there's the membrane invitation. So that's basically for sending clones of V groups to invite, to create new groups and then invite other peoples. You send then invitations with a membrane proof, which is currently not implemented, but which will be implemented in the future, to invite other people to the V. And then there's the vDNA, which has an applet Zohm where you store this is then within one group, yeah, this is then group specific stuff mostly here. So where you store kind of what applets are installed for this group, what are the agents in this group, the profiles of the people in this group, what's their peer status like, are they online, offline, and then that's the we zone that has info about the we group. And so this is basically to visualize a bit how creating of groups works. So there's this basically this big DNA, which is the we, or it's actually the big hApp. So when you install we, you first install this hApp here, which has the lobby DNA and the we DNA. And from the lobby DNA, you start kind of when you create a new group, you say, this is the recipe, take this code here, add some UUID, and you will get this new cell, which is your we group. So each of those are then we groups, separate we groups. And each of these we group has profiles of the members of the group. It has peer status. It has which applets are installed in it, which is stored here in the applet zone. Yeah, that's kind of how it works currently. This makes sense.
I'd love to see the zone definitions.
Sure. So
code.
So that was the lobby. The membrane invitation zone is a zone that we use from the Holochain OpenDev. So it's kind of inserted here just as a GitHub link.
And where is? Sorry, my screen's pretty small, so I'm having a little trouble. Don't know if you can make your font a little larger. But... Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay, so we have here.
Right. Yeah, I can see that.
DNA's lobby and we. Lobby has the zones applet GUIs membrane invitations. Those are the applet GUIs membrane invitation zones. Applet GUIs I already showed before. It has this entry where an applet GUI is a private entry. This is only basically stored to the agent's source chain such that he has this JavaScript readily available when he needs it to render stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the vDNA, which has some applets, peer status, profiles, and peer status and profiles. Those are actually also external crates from Holochain OpenDev. And the applet zone, it basically has this applet entry. That's the most important thing here, where you say what's the name of the applet, what's the description, what is the logo of the applet, what's the dev app release hash, properties, UID, and DNA hashes. And that's kind of the stuff that's then relevant for cloning it. If you want to, if you create a new DNA, a new applet instance, it will generate a UUID for this applet instance, so that it will be its own method. Its own dictionary.
So we is maintaining that directory there. In that
exactly an instance of we, or instance clone, or such a kind of child we here. Each of those group DNAs has a registry of applets, basically.
Right.
Those kind of applets.
But then you showed, when you showed the applet centric view in the demo, you were able to, like there was the list of all the groups.
Yep.
Where is that maintained? Do you build that on the fly in the UI?
This is actually maintained by querying the conductor. I think, wait. Yeah, exactly. Basically, I
Just
create.
install a new one generally.
Sorry.
You just for each group you install a new cell and a clone one, the whole one DNA as a vDNA.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I would need to look in the front-end code to answer your question, to be sure to answer your question correctly.
So you think that that's a query that's initiated from the JavaScript code, is what you think?
I think it's looking into the conductor, and I mean, I can.
No, it's all right. You don't. I just want to know where the call is initiating from, and it's coming from the TypeScript.
Yeah, that's what I want to be sure to look up correctly. Those are the renderers. That's not what I want. Yeah, that's it. Basically, yeah, I queried the conductor and basically say to the conductor, get me all cells that you have installed, and then I filter them, and yeah, basically I filter them and sort them into kind of what class are they of, and then put them into the story. Yeah, that's it. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So it's from the front end, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. So going back to that Zome, there are properties in there, which is just, you know,
in the applet entry here.
Yeah, right. What line 30? Line 30?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are those properties?
Currently, I need to check. Oh, that's the wrong one. Properties. That's currently it. It's a logo, a name, and a timestamp. The timestamp is what's making it unique. What's making the hash and thus the DHT unique. So the first person that initiates the group creates those properties, adds it to the DNA, and then it creates this unique hash due to the unique timestamp. That's how it works currently.
And so is that part of making an app, an applet, is providing a properties, map so that it can be done.
Oh, actually, wait. This is I was mixing up. This is the properties of the we cell. You were asking about the properties of the applet, which is a bit.
No, well, no. I was asking about the properties of we, and then I think I just confused myself.
So those were the properties.
So those are properties of the we, right? Okay. Is it also the case that applets have properties, or no?
Yeah, exactly. They have. Well, actually. I think they should have this. I mean, that's what I store here, basically.
Yeah, I'm still trying to learn how to navigate my way around Holochain app. But I've run into this before where I try and go in and figure out Zome definitions, and then I often run into something like that where I'll just see, a generic B tree, and it's like, all right, but how would I know what the actual, properties are for any given object?
So I think in this case, it is, I think it's a properties of like an applet may be composed of multiple DNAs.
Right.
Does it make sense? And each of these DNAs has properties, has a properties field that makes up its part of its hash also. Like this is part of the DNA.yaml of any DNA. So if I go in some DNA.yaml somewhere, the DNA.yaml here, you have this properties thing where you can add properties which are specific to this instance of the cell. And in this case, basically, I say when I store the applet entry in my applet registry of this specific V group, I store a B tree map, which is a key value store of the role ID that for each DNA of this applet, I store basically the role ID and whatever properties that belong to this DNA.
Exactly. It is the properties that, for example, we use and we can use like in the progenitor scenario. So if you remember the progenitor pattern, yes, we could inject some property here as an admin user or something like that. So this is those kind of property that most probably you are passing to DNA during the installation.
Exactly. And if you go to the hApp.yaml, the hApp.yaml says how to compose multiple DNAs, and each of the DNAs in a hApp has a role ID. So that's the keys of
right.
this.
But so can we go a little slow on this part? Because this is where
sure.
Is that right? So I'm looking here, right? And there's DNA. And it's got a properties, but there's nothing there.
Yeah, that's right. Probably, I mean, that's the V DNA, the hApp, so excuse me. And the hApp, yeah, this is, okay, that's kind of the parent hApp, the hApp.yaml of the parent hApp. This one does not have any properties.
Right.
It's just kind of the generic one that anyone can install.
Right.
And use to generate child apps. And those child, they will.
This app is kind of like a singleton, right?
Yeah, that's this one, like the lobby app.
Yeah, okay.
And this one doesn't have properties. It's basically public, the way it's currently organized.
The other ones, can you look at one of the DNAs?
They will have, but that's then defined by the clone DNA recipe. So if you do, let me. If we go here. Maybe here. Here, create clone DNA recipe. So that's kind of that's what you tell to this membrane invitation zone. You pass him a UID and properties that it will add into the DNA.yaml of the cell that will be created then.
And that set of properties that you're encoding there, I'm trying to chase down the all this indirection to get to an actual property, right? So this looks like the UI is populating that properties attribute when you essentially clone the DNA, right? But it's cloning it from something called properties here. It's encoding properties. Oh, okay. And that's logo, source name, and timestamp. So the fact that, and so is that, wow. Okay, so the schema for the database is defined in the client layer in the JavaScript. That's what I'm getting.
Yes, that's true. I think
Yeah.
Matthias
Yeah.
mentioned at the beginning that the script is in a client and it is in a private, in a local chain, source chain. Am I right, Matthias?
I'm not 100% sure that I could follow, but I mean, basically,
The UI script, I think Steve asking about the script that at the beginning you showed it was in a local source chains, actually.
No, I mean, yes, that's an interesting question, Hadai, but I was just observing that I'm trying to understand what the properties, like I'm an old database guy, so I tend to think of databases as having a schema, right? Now, if I'm dealing with a NoSQL database, there's no defined schema, so it's kind of built on the fly. But even in that case, I'm accustomed to a separation of layers where the decisions about what the properties are for any given entry would be made sort of at a
but
data storage.
properties has nothing to do with the actual entries. So those properties, they have nothing to do with the actual entries of the database. Those are just kind of properties that are, it's kind of like, how would you?
Well, these are just properties of the DNA clone.
Yeah.
Right? I get it that they're not properties of the entries or whatever we're calling them today inside that DNA's chain.
Mm-hmm.
But the definition of what are properties for a DNA clone, it's just a little odd to me. Not a problem per se, but I wouldn't normally think of leaving up to UI developers to define what the schema for our DNAs are. It's just a little, I just haven't, not familiar.
Yeah, I may have gotten your point now.
Can I ask something, Matthias? If you have your also Steve, we can. If let's see if Matthias, you have your own flow to review the code in your pattern. Let's do it, and we can also challenge if there is anything at the end. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, please. I think your presentation is finished, or still it is?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost finished. Like the one thing that I had is like the dev app that's basically just where you store entries of actual hApps, where you basically store the DNA code of a hApp and the UI.zip. That's what you store to the dev app, and this UI.zip has an index.js and an icon currently, because the dev app doesn't yet provide icons, I think. And so when you install an applet, you take basically the DNA code from the dev app, use and then install it to your conductor. And you take the UI.zip, you take you unpack it and store index.js in the applet GUIs zone, and you install information about that fact that you have installed this hApp now into the group. You store it into the applet zone of the vDNA. That's kind of the flow of installing the applet.
Cool. And can you also tell us what is DevHub?
The DevHub is a Holochain DNA app, I would say, which basically is like an app store where you can publish Holochain apps and download them.
Thank you. So to finish it, DevHub is a app store that if anybody would like to put your application as to be run inside the launcher, we use it actually. So that's it, to have the actually full picture of everything on this. So Please continue, Matthias.
Yeah, sure. I don't know. That's kind of for the we part. I could also maybe say a bit or show a concrete example of how a we applet has to look like in order to be interoperable with we, if that makes sense to show now.
Yes, please.
So that's I think I'm gonna kill the Holochain process in the background to make my PC a bit faster. So this is now the calendar events applet. And it's basically kind of, it can be used as a normal hApp with all its zones and stuff. And then it has a normal UI, which you would use it if you would use it just as a normal app. And then with them, again, created the cool create the applet scaffolding tool that you can basically just run in a hApp directory, and then it will create this applet folder for you. And this basically then just needs to depend on your UI elements that you already have in your app, and you need mainly an index.js file that creates such an object of the applet type, which has this applet renderers method. And that's basically where the main UI injects the app WebSocket, the admin WebSocket, and some other stuff, like, for example, the profile store of this group, and also info about the installed apps this renderer may want to call. So here, for example, you have the info and installed app info, basically to say which app is in the conductor, so that the app WebSocket can make a Zoom call to the right cells. And then it has a full render, which is basically, that's what is rendered in the normal applet instance mode. And then it can have also blocks which are, for example, just showing specific parts of a UI potentially, or that's now kind of this merge view render or view that I had where you saw the counters of all the different groups is currently implemented as a block here. So this UI exposes the render function, which can then be called by the reparent UI, and gets also the app WebSocket. And then if you would look how this render function, in this case, it basically defines this calendar event, cross-week calendar events element here, which is this one. And this makes different, I mean, that's what then makes the Zoom calls, basically. So this thing gets the client, or it gets the app WebSocket and makes the Zoom calls. And that's kind of the interface that the applet needs to provide. It's basically this UI.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's current. I would say that's more or less it from my side. We can.
So thank you. I have one question here. It means calendar app. If you go back, please. Yes, it is a calendar app. Just to make it compatible for a V, we need to just implement this V app. Yes.
Exactly. We need to basically say, we need to provide this basically rendering function that says, if I get the app WebSocket, the admin WebSocket, I get the profile store, and I know which cells are cells of my type or are relevant for me, then I can render stuff and I will render it. And what's actually doing the rendering then is this calendar events applet here in case of the full rendering, or the cross-v calendar events element that's used in case that there are multiple cells provided.
Sure, as we can. So it means by implementing this one, the V as a container accepting our component, in this case calendar, and the calendar already implemented this V applet, so it receives a cell with some information and it render itself inside a cell. So as a component, not as a whole application with the index or blah blah.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's it. And what is the cross V calendar event? It is all the, what was that one? Cross V calendar?
That's basically the component that I used to show. If it's still open, I'm not sure. Yeah, that's now I killed the process, but if I clicked here and saw the events of all the different instances here on one page, that's the cross V calendar events element. In this case, it's a lit element. It doesn't necessarily need to be a lit element. And it basically, it gets the app socket, and then it makes calls to the different zones. It also knows, it gets the cell infos here that's injected through the installed applet info. It gets the the cell info that contains the cell ID within the conductor, and it contains information about the V with like the logo and the name. And then it can let me check. This one actually, yeah, has itself the cross cell events calendar element in it, and it passes the cell infos to this component, which is in this case the cross cell. It's this one. Yeah, and it basically takes all calendar events and it has a load calendar event function, and it has uses the calendar event service that says get all calendar events.
I see. Let me rephrase it to see that before looking at code, and did I understand it correctly? So when we click on the calendar as a different perspective, calendar is supposed to open one calendar and show all my events from different groups. In that case, calendar is supposed to receive a conductor, and all the cell inside go to each of them, query the events, bring them back, create a calendar, and put all of them on the calendar to show the perspective that all my events from all different groups. Am I right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's it. So that's why we have a cross-cell event calendar. It means there is an event and place. I'm receiving a conductor, I'm querying, I'm showing based on my behavior. In that case, it is calendar and event. Exactly.
It gets the conductor plus a list of applets that are of calendar type, so that it knows which cells to call.
That is amazing. Thank you. So in this case, as I see, the effort to make a component compatible to V is not really huge, and it's not a drama.
It's not really huge, actually. No, it's actually quite small. I mean, yeah, once you want to do stuff like calling across cells, it may get a bit more complicated depending on the app. But if you say you just create a render for a single applet instance, it's really, you can more or less take the UI you already have and just say how how this render method needs to look like when it gets the app WebSocket, the admin WebSocket, profile store, and the installed kind of the list of cells that are of this type.
Thank you. I think you missed the last page of the PowerPoint, your presentation.
Oh yeah, that's not such an important.
If it is important,
actually.
please do not miss it.
It's just kind of to visualize kind of that that's the way I organize it. Then in the front end, I thought of it as this matrix between groups and applet instances, and you can have the group view where you are in a group and see all the instances, or you can be in the applet navigation where you see all you make calls across different instances of the same applet, or you can potentially do at some point kind of arbitrary mixing up of applets and taking information from different places.
Great. I love also this one. Thank you.
No, actually, I didn't show this visualization, which is maybe also, where is it? Down here, which is also maybe useful. It's basically you can either have kind of, that's the way it's currently implemented, is that you have either class render or instance renders, and basically you can go into the agent perspective where you say you have this class render, and you say, hello class render, take this and this and this cell and make so calls to those cells because those belong to the same calls, same class, same applet class, and then they go and fetch kind of the data from the different DNA instances of the same applet class. Or you can say you go into the group perspective where you say, okay, I take an applet instance render, I get kind of the info, the cell ID and the conductor of one specific instance, and then I render kind of each instance separately. That's kind of, yeah.
Wow, this diagram is beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it took me a while.
Yes, really, it make the logic much more easier to understand even the code. So
okay.
if you can sync this diagram to your code with the rendering instance render, it's beautiful to actually to explain what's happening there. This one, and also the UI that you showed in the your presentation, if you go to your presentation, the one about the UI and this one, yeah. Yes, okay. These two exactly show what is the UI, how the UI is safe, where is it safe actually, that the people can see when they create their application. They already have a UI and they are going to upload it to DevHub as an app store in a launcher, and when they install in the V is going to accept the UI and open it as an applet inside a one group. So that's this two one is kind of make all your effort, all of you, beautifully feasible actually.
Cool.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
I don't know, do you have any questions or remarks or ideas for improvements? I mean, I have lots of ideas myself, of course, for improvements, but I would like to hear your input.
Well, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
And these may be questions that are, I suspect this pattern was already implemented elsewhere, but when I join a group, what exactly is joining the group? Is it a node? I mean, is it a cell? What is it? A person?
Joining a group.
Yeah. What are the members of the group? Not the applets, but the
if you join
profiles.
a group,
yeah,
if you join a group, you get a clone recipe from someone who invites you. And in this recipe, it says, take this base DNA, add these properties, logo, name, and timestamp, and make a clone with those properties, install this.
Right.
Into
I get that part, but I'm looking, like, for example, in the profiles there, each profile corresponds to a member of that group, right? Once I've created the group, then through the membrane invitations, right, is the method I can use to get additional profiles to belong to one of these groups I've created, correct?
I'm not sure whether I understood your last part.
So from the lobby, let's say I've created a group. On this picture right now, I'm seeing 3 we groups.
Yep.
Right? If I just focus on the rightmost lower one, there's something called profiles in there.
Yep.
I think groups, so my question is, what does a profile correspond to in real life? Is that a person's profile, or what is that? Is that a person that belongs to that group, or is that a node that belongs to that group?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. Technically, is I would need to open the profile zone, but it's basically, it's an avatar, an image of that person and the name, basically. So if you join a we, you make a clone, and the first thing you're asked to is to generate to make an entry into the profile zone with your avatar and your name, which is associated to your public key, I would say.
And generally, Steve, this is zone, okay? It is injected to DNA. It means if you join to the DNA, all of the zone code, they are just the zone function that they are going to be responsible for something. So when you are coming as a user for joining with your profile, because every logic of the accepting a new user with a profile, with the condition, with the search, blah, 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 it's isolated inside this module. It is like microservices. So profile here, it means when you are going to join this DNA, you are sending the invitation. Everything inside this zone profile is going to be responsible to accept you, to also provide search for the whole DNA. That's it. It means the people are not supposed to be inside this zone. They are the user of a DNA, the whole DNA of group, as a contributor of a DNA. Look at the user of DNA, but the profile zone, it's going to be like a module to responsible for API or function to validate it, to search it, and blah, blah, blah.
So I will quickly open the profile zone itself to maybe.
Does it make sense, Steve?
Yes.
Do not look at the zone as a user inside the profile zone. Profile zone, everything inside any zone, it is like a module or class. It is just making the code clear. Generally, all the membrane of every person joining one V or one cell, they are the membrane of the DNA. But all the functionality about the profile, checking that there is an avatar, checking business rule for checking the number of length of user, blah, 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 they are going to be isolated inside the profile zone.
Yeah, I get that the zone is the code, right? Is what you're saying. The zone is the code that does the validation and so forth, right? Of the membrane. But what I'm trying to understand is, so there's as I understand it, the profile's got, okay, here we go. We have nickname and some fields. Don't know what those fields are.
Yeah, they depend basically on the specific implementation. I think in the UI that this one has. I think it's in this case the avatar, probably an image, basically a name and an image. That's it.
Right.
And
Okay.
it's associated to the public key because you create this profile entry when you.
I think I'm trying to get at questions of identity.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So if I wanted to know who are all the people that are in group X,
Mm-hmm.
who are all the people that are in group X,
Mm-hmm.
right? Someplace the membership of the group is stored.
Yeah, that's in the profile zone. So every agent that joins makes a profiles entry in this zone.
Right.
This DHT.
Right. Okay, that's what I thought. So it's the code, but also the storage. And then what we said was, like in this example, maybe profile consists of an avatar, a name, and a public key.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where does that public key come from? And what is that?
That's
identify?
Basically what you mean, where it comes from.
And what does it identify?
I think whenever you, I'm not 100% sure, but I think whenever you install a cell on a conductor,
Yes.
it has an associated public key. And when you create your own profiles entry into the profile zone, you see by who created the entry that this profile belongs to this person. So
well,
if you would,
we're right at the crux of it. I think what I heard you say is that basically the public key is the public key generated for a cell.
Yeah, I would say so, exactly.
Okay. So if I, Steve Melville, had a laptop and a desktop and a phone and a Holoport, right? And they were all running the hApp. Those would be 4 different cells with 4 different public keys.
Yes.
Right? Now, I could choose to share my avatar and my name when I register, when I sort of invite or whatever, I could say, hey, I'm Steve Melville, but I could as easy say I'm Mickey Mouse or whatever, right? There's no particular correspondence or nor validation that these public keys identify any particular human being. What they identify is a cell, correct?
Yeah, technically, I would say yes, that's right.
Okay, yeah. And that's where, okay. That answers my question, but it reinforces my belief. So far, I have yet to see in the Holochain ecosystem the concept of a person as a first order object.
Yeah, okay.
Right? And yeah, I thought maybe I would find it here, but no. Okay. All right.
Cool.
So is there any other question regarding just to V, because the topic of identity, and also we can expand it to Holo in that scenario that we want to have all the info on mobile.
The only other question I had about we was, can groups nest?
Currently not, but I think that's potentially one of the things that we would like to implement. I mean, there's a ton of things that we would like to implement. Some of them are also mentioned in the blog post.
That's all I had. Thank you. This has been really helpful.
Cool.
Thank you, Matthias.
Yes, thank you, Matthias, to wrap it up today recording. So I really thank you for explaining and showing us all behind the scene of V, that is beautiful architecture, how the things is working. So I believe later again we are going to take a look at more detail in code to see what's going on. Thank you. So if you would like to say anything, please just wrap it up and finish the session from my side. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any special things to say, unless maybe the support from the end that I got, and like all the amazing modules that made this kind of plugging together stuff really easy. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's cool how you're doing the lightweight plugin of the UI. So
yeah,
nice. Thanks
Thank
again.
you, and bye bye everybody for this video.